Tonight, 3 issues testing the patience of Canadians. The Auditor-General calls out the CRA for leaving taxpayers on hold.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stirs national outrage over his latest remarks about the RCMP.
And Montreal faces yet another transit strike set to hit on Halloween. From Montreal, I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. This is Night Talk Canada, episode 56. Now, before we dive in, there's just a couple of things I'd like to pass along here. And the first one is this. We are monitoring the Prime Minister to see if, in fact, we can bring you at least part of his speech tonight. He's speaking to some students, and it's thought to be talking about the economy and how it impacts even younger people, and the budget, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks. And if that happens, we'll just abandon everything and jump in and then do a bit of a follow-up after the fact. But in the meantime, we're just going to go along with our regular programming because we have some important topics to discuss tonight. But before we dive into tonight's issues, I want to update the segment we did last week on the creep of halal-only menus into the school systems, specifically in a New Brunswick school district, the Francophone South School District. And according to social media, other schools elsewhere in the country where they are suggesting, and again, suggesting parents have been notified of a total pork ban. Well, first of all, the viral TikTok that we used last week, the video we played last week of a father raising the issue, appears to have been recorded somewhere in Alberta, maybe in the Calgary area. Now, as far as we can determine, no schools in Alberta have banned pork, nor is there any evidence of any schools in the country banning pork in lunches brought from home. Now, some, like the schools in the Francophone South School District in New Brunswick, have moved their menu over to halal only, but they are not restricting pork coming in from home. So I wanted to clarify that because as I was going through and working on some edits for YouTube posts and TikTok and what have you, it appeared that maybe we were leaning in that direction, and I wanted to make sure that you understood where we were coming from. Okay, so let's move along. Let's make sure that you join the conversation tonight. Let us know your opinion on any or all of the topics up for discussion. Now, let's get started with tonight's issues. And here we go. We begin tonight with an issue that affects millions of Canadians trying to reach the Canada Revenue Agency. Auditor-General Karen Hogan, appearing before the Public Accounts Committee yesterday, says the agency's call centers are failing and failing badly. And after years of promises and millions spent, little has changed. Now, here's what she told the Standing Committee on Public Accounts yesterday.
We found agents' responses to individual tax questions were accurate only 17% of the time, and business tax or benefit questions were accurate just over half of the time. To test the accuracy of agents' responses to account-specific questions, we reviewed a sample of recorded conversations. We found that the accuracy was much higher when questions pertained to specific accounts.
Now, Hogan says training methods for the call center workers are weak at best. Wait till you hear this.
I think there's lots of opportunities within Canada Revenue Agency to improve how they provide service to Canadians, and having only about 10% of an agent's annual performance review based on the accuracy and completeness of their responses, in my mind, does not encourage a good culture where accuracy and completeness is top of mind. In Canada, our tax system is a voluntary one, and Canadians are expected to provide their tax returns on time with accurate information. And I think in return, they should expect that the Canada Revenue Agency will be available in a timely fashion and provide them with accurate information. And what we're seeing is that is not the case. And this was meant to be a follow-up to see if things had improved since 2017. And I would say that if you're calling about a general question, they haven't gotten better. But if you are calling about specific things about your account, you will get an accurate answer. However, the My Account creation was meant to take calls away from a call center. And a majority of the calls received by the call center right now are trying to access My Account. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to make this more efficient for Canadian taxpayers.
Wow. Do you think? A lot of opportunities. The call centers, people have ended up on the line trying to get through to someone 3 hours. 3 hours.
That's insanity.
Waiting to get through. And then when you do get through, if you have a question that's very general in nature, most of the time, 83% of the time, you were getting the wrong information. They were a little better if you went to your specific account and had a question related to your specific account. But in general terms, 83% of the time, the wrong information. And all of the long waits trying to get through on the phone, they've got outdated tech, and they've spent $100 million on the system so far.
Mm-hmm.
$100 million, Eddie.
Yeah, I tell you what, Gary, I have a lot of experience in terms of managing command centers, network command centers, and call centers and service desks. And to tell you quite honestly, in terms of some of the research I did in terms of what the government is using as success key point indicators, I would terminate, and I mean fire, everyone involved with running this particular call center, because the numbers that they are actually targeting in terms of what they deem as a success rate in all aspects. I mean, you're looking at mean time to resolve. How long does it take an agent to resolve the caller's problem? I think it was averaging like 45 minutes. Looking at metrics such as average time to respond. How long does it actually take a center to be able to respond to a customer? You were saying in some cases you're waiting 3 hours. The agency is saying something to 50 to 60 minutes, which I find hard to believe. But 50 to 60 minutes is way, way, way too long. So there are all kinds of fascinating ways in terms of using technology to do one important thing. A couple of important things, but first and foremost, give the caller what they're looking for, right? You're either using technology to provide the caller with the response they're looking for, using all kinds of technology, voice recognition technology. They should be employing AI at this particular stage, which is a lot of money to invest as well. They could also be employing in knowledge center services, where you have an agent who has to provide information on tens of thousands of different possible questions and outcomes, basically presenting this information to the agent to help guide him to provide a necessary answer to the caller. So much technology out there available to help the agent, and it seems that still we're failing miserably on all fronts. How quickly can we get to the caller? How well can we actually answer the caller's question? And at the end of the day, you're looking at customer sat scores. They're saying, they've got customer satisfaction ratings of 77%. Well, I think that's low to begin with. I'd be fired for 77% customer sat. But by the same token, I don't think they're being quite honest in terms of what the true customer sat is. The numbers could be manipulated to make them look better than they actually are. I wouldn't be proud of 77%. I would get fired for that. My directors would have been fired for that. So, you know what, Gary, there is a lot of work that has to happen here. And this is not the agent's fault. This is not the call center's fault. This is the government's fault and neglect of that particular organization and keeping them up with the times in terms of what technologies are necessary and available to the agents, and at the end of the day, enable them to be successful in addressing what the caller is inquiring about in the first place. And this is it's a disaster. Myself, my wife, few of my consulting friends would be more than happy to offer our services out there. They have a lot of work to do, Gary, and they are just not cutting it. And you know what? I mean, I know that she was auditing, and she's trying to remain optimistic as possible. But with those kind of numbers, they have a long way to go before it's actually a very viable and a successful. Let's call it a business unit, and the business unit success factor is based on customer sat. And at 77%, that's a joke. I think it's way less than 77% if it's properly measured. So. You know what? Top marks to the agents doing the best they possibly can with what they're given. If they're giving bearskins and knives to manage their work, well, that's what the customer is going to get. A service that's been effectively given to them using bearskins and knives. And hats off to the agents at CRA. They do a great job with what they have. So top marks to them. But as a business unit, the call center itself, from management down to the people who run this place, they need to do a better job, Gary, because waiting 3 hours on the phone is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, before I jump in with a couple of points, for clarification, the Prime Minister is not scheduled to start speaking until 7:30, so we'll keep monitoring that.
Okay.
Now, let's come back around. The CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, is the federal government's cash point. That is its revenue intake. That's the big vacuum cleaner in the sky that sucks all of our tax dollars in. And if your main fuel engine is not working properly, your fuel pump is not working properly, what are you missing out on? Mm-hmm. And how accurate is everything that's taking place behind the scenes? How accurate is it? If you're working with outdated equipment, and if your call center is outdated, can you imagine what it's like beyond the call center?
Yeah, in the back office, absolutely.
Yeah. They're probably still working on Windows Vista, for God's sakes. Who knows? Like it's.
Hey, I've seen some hospital PCs and laptops still working on Vista, for crying out loud.
And that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And you wonder why all of a sudden we're having more breaches as far as bad actors getting into our various government agencies. If you're running outdated software, you have old machines, and you have people who haven't been trained. The call center, like when she said this the other day, I was watching her yesterday making this presentation, and when she said, when you average it out, they get 10 minutes a year of training in their call center responsibility. 10 minutes a year. I can't comprehend that.
Bearskins and knives. Simple as that.
And pretty damn dull knives while you're at it.
Yeah, but you think about it. I mean, the different variety of questions that this particular service desk or call center agent specialist is facing is absolutely monumental. Give out the wrong answer, and the person on the other end of the line will make a mistake in terms of their filing, whether it's business or whether it's a person like you and I, civilian. give them a wrong answer, and all of a sudden, they're pocketing $10,000 that they would have been giving up because of a wrong answer. It goes to what you're saying. This is supposed to be our cash cow. We're leaving money on the table. So 10 minutes training a year. Look, I mean, general call center specialists, when you speak about your bells or customer support centers and whatnot, agents typically go through some sort of initial training of 2 to 3 weeks before they even put finger on keyboard, just to clearly understand the product they're supporting, and then all the necessary tools that go along with it. And then typically they shadow another agent to make sure that they're brought up to snuff in terms of how their greetings go, how they speak to customers, and so on and so forth, and what they're presenting. And then they're led on their own. And then you have an evaluation every 6 months in terms of, all right, what else do we need to teach these individuals as we're ramping up and ramping down? And Gary, when it comes to our tax system here in Canada, it's very cyclical. Okay, so you're looking at heavy duty manpower for 3 months of the year leading into the end of April. Well, you're not going to keep all this entire manpower on duty for the entire year, right? I mean, so one way to get around it is you have your primary agent set up for this mandate all year round. And then when you bring people in, you don't bring them in January. You bring them in September and you start training them. Now, these individuals could be floaters going through various department bodies, right? And then when you actually need these agents during income tax time, you bring them in. And the more automated your systems are in terms of driving their activity and informing the agent as to what information they should be presenting, the easier it is to do that. And like you were saying, if they're still running on Windows Vista, I highly doubt that the agencies or the technology within the CRA are going to allow any agent, both experienced and newcomer succeed. Agent training, service special training, has to be done in an ongoing and consistent manner, and their performance effectively measured, not just monthly. It can be very easily managed daily. And then there's all sorts of money you can invest in workforce management systems that allow you to correctly plan how many people you need during specific times of the day and during what day of the week. There's all kinds of technology available to management out there to effectively deploy the right resources. But the key here is they need to ensure they have trained resources. Gary, you know what 10 minutes is? Hi, welcome to your new job. Here's the coffee machine and there's your desk. There's your 10 minutes. Like, what the? I'm flabbergasted.
Well, yeah, when you consider, okay, during tax time this past year, I went in at one point, I was looking for a document that I thought, okay, I'll just go into my account and download it. Well, I couldn't get into the account. Apparently there was some kind of a computer glitch and they were down for a few days at peak tax season. This is the CRA with a screw up in their system. You have the Phoenix Pay system, which they've been kicking that can around for years, and now
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, and for millions and millions of dollars, the Canada Arrive app. Nothing. I'm just sitting here thinking, what the hell did Trudeau do over the last 10 years? Why? He was the top dog. Why wasn't he calling in his ministers and having regular updates with them and meetings as to what's going on within your department? If you're the minister that's stuck with the Phoenix Pay fiasco, if you're the minister with the Canada Arrive app, and we all know there was all kinds of controversy around that, and now the Canada Revenue Agency, it's just the money that we are wasting as taxpayers on trying to fix. There's basic solutions out in the real world for a hell of a lot less than what we're spending, and they keep spending trying to, fix it. If it doesn't work after the first tweak, get rid of it, because you don't have time to frig around with it like this. And I don't want you spending my money on something that you're just throwing it to the wind.
I've seen it quite often in my career, Gary, is you have companies, and that's called the Canadian government and CRA a company. They're basically trying to hold something together with chicken wire.
Yeah.
And every time something happens, you put more chicken wire around it. And something happens again, you put more chicken wire around it. And hopefully it'll go away. Well, you know what? The chicken wire works for a while, but at some point, you don't even see what's inside the chicken wire anymore. Meaning the thing just doesn't work, and the thing doesn't work. And I've seen it many, many, many times in both some of my clients. I've seen it in competitors' offices. The longer you hold on, the longer you use chicken wire and duct tape to solve your problem, it's just going to get worse exponentially. Suffice it to say, this is exactly what I'm saying. And you know what? I think they're beyond chicken wire. No, I don't know what's holding it together, but my goodness, Gary, you figure, like you were saying, this is the cash cow for the government, right? How many? I'm going to even say hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions is being left on the table here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and here's another thing. Look at the dental program. Revealed in the last day or two that a number of people who were deemed eligible for that program, there was a mistake made in their income, and they're no longer eligible. However, the kind-hearted government, any of the work you've had done, they're not going to claw back the cash that they've paid for that work. It's just, you're out the door. My point on that one is this, Eddie, like, say I qualified, and I was told I qualified, and I go ahead and I give up my private insurance. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, after having some work done, the government comes along and says, Mr. MacDonald, sorry, we made a mistake. You don't qualify, but we're not going to, ask you to pay back. You're just not going to have coverage going forward. So then I pick up my insurer and call and say, I'd like to get back on my plan. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
And either
see,
they
Mr.
find,
McDonald.
Yeah, they find a way to say no, or they find a way to make you say no. It's, because all of a sudden your premium has shot up, or they just say, you don't qualify for the coverage anymore. So all of a sudden, these people are left out there with no coverage, no dental coverage. How does that even happen? And you had Trudeau and his cabinet ministers running around before he finally jumped ship, bragging about the dental program. All of these issues over the last 10 years, it's like he was off somewhere playing in the sandbox and not paying any attention to anything.
Yeah.
You can't blame this on Carney and his government now. They've come in, and it'd be the same if Poilievre had formed government. They're coming in behind now and trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nothing but dust. There's no pieces. It's just dust and a lot of red ink. Let's run quick to the comment section. And by the way, if you've had any encounters with the CRA over the last year, let us know how you made out and if you had any issues in getting through, and if you received the right information or the wrong information. And maybe you'll find out this year it was the wrong information when you start doing your tax and you submit the form and they come back and say, oh, no.
Get an oops letter.
Yeah, here we go. Manel says, yeah, I'm sorry. The management here is also hugely to blame. What is preventing them from training to their staff, giving training to their staff? What's preventing the senior staff training the junior staff? Absolutely nothing, Monel, that I can see. Absolutely nothing other than incentive. Some kind of an incentive to say, I should really have a chat with the staff today. Let's have a team meeting, or let's, they're just kind of like nobody's really sort of kept tabs on it, and I think they've been left alone just to kind of roll along, and it was more a case of do
your best, and
I'm almost speechless, almost.
Well, you know what? Something I'm going to go out and say it because I know later on our show we're going to be speaking about them, but you know what? Why doesn't Agent A train Agent B? Well, maybe they're unionized. And maybe union rules define that, well, that's not their job. Right? And that's one problem. And the other one is I'm sure that most of these agents are remote workers. So training is a little more difficult to do, but not impossible if management insists that you have shadow training. You can have senior agents see exactly what the trainee is seeing on their screen and how they're conducting business. All kinds of solutions out there. So Manila is absolutely right. There's really no reason you shouldn't have buddy training as they call it in the industry, and it's just an absolute shame because you know what, the agent is trying to do the best job they possibly can, and they're just not being given the means to effectively do it. I wonder what their turnover rate is. I mean, to be working in an environment where you're just constantly being badgered and criticized by your clients on the other side, it really has a very detrimental effect on a specialist psyche and their capability to do a better job. I would imagine if with the numbers that were provided by the auditor, that the customer satisfaction levels are extremely low. People calling in and not getting the answers they need. They're waiting on the line for 3 hours, and then to reach an agent who basically says, "Oh, I'm going to have to get back to you." I'm sure they're going to get an earful. It's being a specialist is a thankless job, and typically you do see a high turnover rate. I wonder what their turnover rate is with the Canadian service desk. Well, sorry, CRA service desk agents, or is it one of those situations where it's a cushy government job and I don't care what happens.
It's a government job, Eddie. It's a government job.
Yeah, that slipped my mind, but I get it. It's cushy.
Well, the pay is good. The benefits are great. And if they're all working remotely, which I question, why are they working remotely? Especially when you have a situation like this. To me, it should be into the office, all hands on deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the CRA, it's I think it's being headquartered out of Shawinigan, Quebec, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Monstrous facility out there, and there's really, besides trying to get people to live in Shawinigan, I guess, there is nothing stopping major command centers from being set up throughout the entire country. Follow the sun's approach. Shift on as the time zones change. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning of my piece, there's all kinds of solutions out there to run this thing 7x24 and from the moon if you wanted to, if you equip the specialists with the right tools and the right training. So. You know what, CRA, wake the hell up. This is not rocket science.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a case of throwing more money at the problem.
No.
Because you're not getting the return on investment for that money. And, the number that stands out to me is only 1/3 of the calls actually reach a live agent. Yeah. Only 1/3 of the calls actually reach a live agent.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. How is that allowed to go on?
Well, you know what? We in many segments during many shows, Gary, you and I always speak about one very important word: accountability. Where the hell is the accountability? Excuse me. Where was the accountability in the last 10 years? Because this is not something that happened recently. This is not something that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, this is just total and utter complete neglect for a very, very long time. Definitely during the Trudeau era, and who knows how far back it goes. But yeah, a lot of the technological advances in terms of service desk management, a lot of the good stuff started coming out 15 years ago. Is our technology at least that old? I hope so. That's
think about it, Eddie. Look at what we're doing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You, me, and Jen here helping out on the technical side. And we're broadcasting to the world. And yes, we have our technical issues from time to time, but some of it's my fault. Some of it is, just the internet. You're at the mercy of the internet, and things happen. But we just keep doing it, and each time out, it's a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science to do this. It can't be that hard. You have Apple, $4 trillion market cap. You have Microsoft, which is $3 to $4 trillion market cap. They don't seem to have any kind of an issue with the revenue intake side of things.
Yeah.
Yet here we are.
Yeah, it's a shame. And I saw somewhere as well that they're outsourcing a particular chunk of their workloads out to IBM. IBM wrote a book on service desk management. They wrote the book on this thing decades ago. All right. So what's going on here? Here we have IBM that has everything that they have developed, and particularly a service desk agency or an agency might need in terms of correctly training and correctly equipping their agents with the right tools to be able to do a good job. I don't understand why, working side by side with an IBM, that the service still continues to struggle in providing adequate answers to the callers. I really don't get it. I know it's probably there's a good mix of people, but you know what? With IBM's involvement, they should be guiding the government in terms of what they need to do to correct issues, and how to unwrap the chicken wire and fix the problem at source. I don't know. I just don't get it. The willingness of the government to pay. Does IBM want to gouge the government because it's the government? I don't know. I mean, you and I will never know about it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. For those who got their answers, good for you. Congratulations. I hope you got good answers.
Yeah,
but
the right answer.
When you're looking at only 30% of the calls, or 30% of the calls coming through are actually getting answered, that's just incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for now. And I'm sure probably around tax time, we'll have an excuse to revisit this issue and see, in fact, if anything has really, really changed. And we'll know very quickly. So, okay, up next, a political flashpoint. Night Talk Canada is powered by Ecamm, the leading live streaming and video production studio built for Mac. I've been using Ecamm for almost 8 years for recording, live streams, Zoom, and Teams calls. You can find out more about Ecamm by clicking the affiliate link in the description below.
Okay, Gary. And Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's latest comments about the RCMP have lit up Ottawa and stirred the country, calling the commissioner despicable and suggesting Justin Trudeau should be jailed. Poilievre's words have sparked outrage across the aisle and within his own party. Here's how it unfolded on a popular right-wing podcast, Northern Perspective.
Many of the scandals of the Trudeau era should have been involved jail time. I mean, Trudeau broke the criminal code when he took a free vacation from someone with whom he had government business. It's just it's right there in the criminal code. If the RCMP had been doing its job and not covering up for him, then he would have been criminally charged. And again, he probably violated the criminal code in the SNC-Lavalin scandal. These would normally have led to criminal charges, but of course the RCMP covered it all up, and the leadership of the RCMP is frankly just despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government. It's not going to happen in our case because we're not going to hire people who are there to rip off the system.
And Green Party leader Elizabeth May was one of those who took exception to Poilievre's remarks.
I felt compelled to speak out at Pierre Poilievre's latest, outburst that seems to have come from the pages of Project 2025. It certainly didn't come from the criminal code, with the notion that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should be in jail, if not for the quote-unquote despicable leadership of the RCMP. The report of the late Mary Dawson, the Ethics Commissioner for Canada, she reported in 2017 that she believed Justin Trudeau had broken the ethics code by accepting the Christmas vacation the year before on the Aga Khan's private island. If not for Mary Dawson's subjective finding that the Aga Khan did not meet the definition of family friend, there was no offense here. But even if every element of the ethics code was proven, which I don't believe it was, even if every element had been proven at that time, this was not a criminal code offense. So where is Pierre Poilievre's notion that the former Prime Minister should be jailed? It's deeply worrying because this is the kind of thing going on right now in Trump's United States. I do think for the Canadian public, it needs to be clear when somebody is evading the law and when they're not. And what does it advance Canadian society to refer to the RCMP leadership as quote-unquote despicable? I think the RCMP needs massive reforms, by the way. I just asked about an hour ago of the Minister for Public Security, the Honourable Gary Andesagria. Has he read the mass casualty report, for example? Are we at all interested in the findings of the most extensive investigation into RCMP negligence? That report said that a 26-week course is not sufficient, and RCMP officers should undergo a 3-year course. But that's not the same as what Pierre Poilievre said. He said the leadership was corrupt. The leadership was influenced by partisan interests and politics. It's very different questions. And I really think Pierre Poilievre should apologize. It also would probably help save his own skin.
And in question period yesterday, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon was looking for an apology from Poilievre.
But last week, the Leader of the Opposition put into question the independence of our judiciary, of the independence of our prosecutors, of the police, in fact, the very police that put their lives on the line to protect him, Mr. Speaker. The Leader has the next 30 seconds to make amends, to apologize, to tell the people of this chamber and this House that he is sorry for what he said. We don't do that in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Liberals are trying to distract from their inflation and rising cost of living by talking about their corruption. This will be the 10th Liberal budget. Already, they've doubled the debt, food bank lineups, and housing costs. Every dollar the government spends comes directly out of the pockets of Canadians who can no longer afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. Their fridges are empty, Mr. Speaker. Will they learn these costly lessons? Will they cap their inflationary deficits and get rid of their insane taxes on groceries?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is inventing scenarios to distract from the story. The Leader of the Opposition has had 2 opportunities to apologize to the RCMP, our judges, and our legal system. He has refused to do that. In terms of inflationist spending, so-called inflationist spending from the opposition leader, well, he still hasn't suggested one single way to cut or identified what spending, what support for which Canadians he thinks is inflationary, Mr. Speaker.
Wow.
So no apology from Pierre.
No. Deflect and look over there. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, squirrel. Let's go to comments right away here because we do.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's Deborah. PP brings up Trudeau as often as DJT brings up Biden. I'd like him to just go away. I don't blame you. And Monel, let's go back to comments. We have one more quick comment here. Monel says, I wish PP would just go away. Well, Manel, you may, if you're a good girl, and at Christmas time, you may get the wish in January, because that's when the leadership review comes up. He really walked into it with this particular comment. And today even, there were some members of his party, MPs, who are questioning the comment, the way it was made, the tone of it and everything. So you have, within the Conservative Party right now, you have some people, not only his elected MPs, but some very long-time supporters who are not overly impressed with that particular line of attack that Poilievre took. And if you watched him, he looked pretty relaxed in that interview he did with the folks at Northern Perspective. Really quite relaxed. And so it wasn't like it just kind of blurted out. Obviously, this has been on his mind, and it's something that he believes in. But, wow. And then you watch him coming out of his meeting with Carney late this afternoon, and he kind of reminded me of the Poilievre we saw return to the House of Commons after winning the by-election in August. And that lasted for about 10 minutes. And then the old Poilievre started coming out again. And after that, it was the old Poilievre. I don't get him. I don't get him. You
know what, Gary, when he lost his seat, I know you were pretty adamant about, the honorable politician would have resigned, and he didn't. And not that I disagreed with you, but I said I was really willing to give him a chance, let him get back on the pedestal and see what he can actually present to Canadians as a possible alternative to a Carney government or a Liberal government later on down the line when an election happens. So I'd say let's give him a chance. If you roll back the clock a little, just at the point of time when he was vying for the seat of the Prime Minister, one of the two things that you and I had talked about was, how more subdued he was, how more prime ministerial Pierre Poilievre had become during his campaign, how he retained and maintained a civil tongue during not the question period, but the debate, the prime minister's debate. That he presented himself in a very prime ministerial fashion, and I was very encouraged by that because it offered me as a voter an option. And let's hear what each leader has to say and what they're going to do for promoting Canada and continuing to develop Canada in a very trying world. And I always had in my mind something both you and I adamantly agreed on during the Trudeau-Poilievre era in the House of Commons on the circus that ensued every time these two individuals were actually in the House of Commons representing the official party and the official party of Canada and the Conservatives, who were the opposition party. It was an absolute, and I hate using this language, a shit show every time these guys got up and spoke. Very, very, undisciplined. It was all about the 15-second clip on social media and making really crazy statements just for his show. And a few weeks ago, Gary, once he actually returned to Parliament, we had said to each other, will the real Pierre Poilievre stand up?
Right.
And I think what we just saw is the real Pierre Poilievre standing up again. He was always there. He was in hiding. Okay. You know how the saying goes, the color of a leopard's spots never go away. They may be hidden by fur or whatever else, but you know what? At the end of the day, the spots always remain the same. And you know what? I'm actually extremely disappointed at Pierre Poilievre's conduct this past week. I was still hoping that he would grow as a politician, grow as a diplomat, and be prime ministerial. I really wanted to see a good, solid, true leader of the opposition party to keep the Carney government in check. Quite frankly, Gary, I no longer think that he's the right man for the job. Do I think conservative policies based on what his ministers are saying on a consistent basis would be good for Canada? Yes. I'm not saying they're a total lost cause. I think what happened here is that the lost cause is going to continue to grow as time moves on, that Mr. Poilievre is going to continue shooting his mouth off and shooting himself in the foot. This week did not do any good for him when the leadership review comes up in December or January of 2026. I think he's going to have a very difficult time in his hand in terms of selling his caucus that he's the man to take the Conservative Party into the next election. He's completely lost me, and I'm actually sad and disappointed that he didn't do a better job, at least from my perspective as a Canadian citizen, Gary.
Well, let's hear what the West Coast has to say here. Joe's chiming in with, oh, there we go. It was a smoke screen. A leopard can't change its spots. So, absolutely. He's a career politician. That's all he's known. And but apparently he hasn't learned a whole lot as far as over the length of his career. And
what possibly could he have gained from those statements? Like literally,
trying to stir up, I guess, the deep ultra conservative vote.
I mean, Elizabeth May, I mean, she hit it right on the nose. Like, what is it that you're starting to sound like our neighbors to the south? I mean, you know what? I'm not going to say she was far from the truth. I think she was bang on.
She was.
I mean, he was starting to sound like mini MAGA Mike Johnson. I mean, why start this divisive politics up in our country, which is extremely successful? It's on its diversity. What I don't understand what he's coming off with in terms of, let's throw a former prime minister in jail, basically. I mean, I don't recall in my lifetime hearing any one of our leaders or even opposition leaders, anybody in power or opposition, accuse someone of anything that would justify throwing them in jail. This is un-Canadian. I'm sorry, Mr. Poilievre, but this is very un-Canadian. And that's number one. Point number two, very loosely floating accusations at the RCMP in terms of them being incompetent and what did he call the commissioner? Not disgusting, but
despicable.
Despicable. Yeah. Well, you know what? Despicable is an emotional term. Okay, there is zero evidence. There's zero credibility in you saying that somebody's despicable. And I'm sorry, you sounded just like someone in the United States, literally. And I believe he said despicable, said this wording in that interview that he did with this right-wing media chain. And you know what? I looked at excerpts, and he's got that that grin when he's speaking, and he's sitting there with the interviewers, and it's that silly grin that you see on Fox News on a consistent basis. And you know what? I just couldn't believe what I was watching. This was a Canadian citizen who leads the Conservative Party of Canada, conducting himself in a manner I think is very let alone not as a parliamentarian, but what are you doing as a Canadian citizen speaking this way? Like, my goodness.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Eddie, he didn't learn his lesson from the defeat he suffered in the federal election back in April. And the lesson is, people did not buy into him sounding like he was taking a page from the Republican playbook. Mm-hmm. That's not what Canadians wanted. And, it didn't take a mental giant to figure out that's not what Canadians wanted on April the 28th, when we were in the midst of the elbows up trade war battle.
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell would we elect anybody that's even remotely like Trump and the rest of his gang? Why would we do that in this country? He didn't get it. So he goes home, he licks his wounds, he doesn't step down, and they're not only losing the election, but blowing a 20-some-odd point lead, 25-point lead, and failing to pivot on issues and the slogans that were not resonating with Canadians. You're not a leader. It's just that simple. You're not a leader. You didn't have the leadership ability. So why wouldn't you resign, given the fact, we increased the popular vote? Yeah, but you still didn't win the election.
Mm-hmm.
And you and the campaign manager didn't read the tea leaves properly. So to me, the honorable thing for him to have done would have been to resign then and there. And, that party's gone through a few leaders over the last few years, election after election, and chewed up their leaders. And I'll tell you a guy that originally I gave a few marks to was Andrew Scheer. And, he was leader of the party for a while. Mm-hmm. But man, oh man, since Poilievre has taken over, I've lost a lot for Scheer in the way that he's approaching things, and just his demeanor and that I just don't care for it. And at one point early when he was early in the leadership role of the party, I thought, okay, maybe this guy has a bit of a chance and can appeal to the average Canadian, and we'll see where it goes. Well, it didn't go very far, and now, yes, he's back sitting as an MP. He's been successful as an MP for sure, but he's kind of become a mini me of Poilievre. And I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. The minute he starts to open his mouth, he may have his facts straight, but I'm not hearing them. I'm just not impressed with the delivery and the attitude and you name it. Now, some of the hardline right-wing supporters, you watch them on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever, they're loving it.
Mm-hmm.
But love away, but that's what lost you the election. One of the key factors that help you to lose the election, that you're not sitting in government today. So,
yeah.
Anyway, the end of January, and you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. I don't like winter a little bit, but at the end of January, we've got a chunk of it behind us, and I can't wait to watch the coverage of the leadership review. That's if they allow the media in, because that wouldn't surprise me if they did not allow the media in to cover the leadership review. Would not surprise me in the least. And if that happens, I have to be sitting here and asking myself, what are you hiding?
Yeah.
You want to be an open party. You need to be an open party if you want to start regaining trust of Canadians. And you have a long uphill battle. Anyway, I'm not surprised Poilievre's gone down this road, but it's not helping him or the party. It's just one more thing, and you're going to very quickly see that some of the Conservatives are have been jumping for joy because the gap is starting to close. No, you're not moving. Your numbers aren't moving. It's the Liberals whose numbers are moving, and the honeymoon period is fading away. So yeah, they're going to lose some. But the numbers didn't go to the Conservative Party. If you look at it, they're going to the Bloc and the Dippers.
Mm-hmm.
That's where those numbers are, going. So it's not the Conservatives who are gaining. Yeah, the gap may be closing a bit, but you're not any closer to actually winning an election. The support is going elsewhere. And the sooner you give your heads a shake and look at it and face the reality of that situation, maybe you might have a chance down the road with a new leader. The Conservative Party needs a new leader.
Yeah, you're obviously not surprised in terms of what happened this past week with Mr. Poilievre's statements.
Nope.
That's a certainty. Let me ask you this. I started off with being disappointed. Being disappointed that our government today does not have two credible leaders in the House that can actually have active debate and challenge each other on policies and how the country moves forward. Is there any air of disappointment in Gary MacDonald that this actually happened?
If there's any disappointment, Eddie, it's not a personal disappointment. In that, it's disappointing for Canadians in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the case, then we're not getting the government we deserve. It's as simple as that. And that's not in the best interest of me, not in the best interest of you or any other Canadian at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And question period, it's still not as bad as what it was near the end with Poilievre and Trudeau, but it's starting to go in that direction to the point that sometimes I just can't sit here and listen to it. I just can't. It's just, and I saw an article and I went back to find it a day later and I couldn't find it. But somebody has suggested maybe we should just do away with question period. Because, and you know what? There's no real level of accountability during question period. It's talking points back and forth, and hollering and clapping, and it's like watching playtime in a daycare, really, a lot of times, and nothing is accomplished. There's nothing that is accomplished other than somebody walks away with their 15 seconds of fame for a TikTok clip.
But
that doesn't make my life any better. It doesn't make your life any better.
Yeah. I enjoy watching question period from time to time, except when it seems to be turning into a circus like this week's was. That started to turn into an absolute circus where you have one side justifying positions, and then you have the other side starting a new circus show or a new segment of a circus. It started out quite nicely in terms of when the House of Commons reopened for debate, but just the last showing or two, it was turning into a circus, and it seemed to me it was triggered and propagated by one side of the House, by one party in particular, which is what I'm disappointed about, Gary, is that, and then you hit it bang on in the head. Our government isn't doing anything during this type of a question period circus. They're not doing anything for Canada. They're not doing anything for you and me as citizens, and I guess that's for me that's a disappointing part, and it's not easy to watch. Get back to the business of running government. Get back to the business of having decent debate while this is being broadcast to the Canadian public, as opposed to the grandstanding piece. And You know what? I hope the individual you heard saying that we should do away with question period is wrong, because I think that would be a travesty for our country, where we're going to end up with a governmental system like the United States has, where there is zero accountability to citizens in public forum. They pretty much hide their discussions from what's going on behind closed doors. I'd like to see question period continue. I'm not sure if there's any sort of way we can, the Speaker of the House can corral these outbursts. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I think if you look at British Parliament, when they go at it, they go at it pretty heavily, but with a huge degree of respect for the responsibility that every leader of their district has in terms of speaking in the British Parliament. Very respectful, very aggressive, but very respectful. And it's just so sad to see it's only one party in particular right now that seems to be pushing the envelope in terms of a lack of respectability on the floor and what the debates are supposed to mean and accomplish. It's just been, it seems to have been forgotten. I don't know how else to describe it.
Poilievre has been quoted as defending his remarks as truth to the power.
Huh?
Really? Yeah. What the hell are you trying to tell us there, Pierre? But here's the thing. He's called into question the neutrality of the RCMP, our National Police Force, which, by the way, for a lot of reasons, it seems that National Police Force, over the years, it's become a catch-all of all kinds of responsibilities, and I think we need to really sit down and have a look at redefining what the goal is, the mandate is of the RCMP, because I think it's become a force. It's become obviously a political arrow that certain parties, certain individuals like to fire every so often. It's become, in some respects, trying to be all things to all people, like spread all over the place. I think we need to do that for the sake of the force and redefining what a national police force is. I think we need to redefine that aspect of it. Now, Poilievre, his populist tone appeals to what seems to be a very solid, but I would suggest small, conservative base. But, it does risk alienating the moderates, and I think we're starting to see more evidence of that as time goes on. So I don't know. I don't know how he wants to define his leadership or lack thereof, but in my books, he's scoring a big fat 0 all the way around. It's just as simple as that. And the sooner the Conservative Party federally wakes up to the fact that you need a new leader, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Hear, hear.
Okay, coming up, Montrealers are facing yet another month of public transit disruptions beginning on Halloween. Can you imagine? On Halloween. Anyway, trick or treat, for sure. In the meantime, are you starting a website or looking to move to a new provider? Well, stand proud. Host Canadian with Web Hosting Canada, based right here in Montreal. And they have their servers all hosted here in Canada as well. They provide a variety of web-based services and at competitive prices. I've been a customer of WHC for almost 5 years now and a very satisfied customer at that. You can check out more by clicking the affiliate link in the description below.
All right, Gary. Let's move on. Commuters in the second largest city in Canada could soon be facing another transit nightmare.
That's right. Montreal public transit maintenance workers are set to, are you ready for this? Yes, they are set to strike again at month's end, and the city's patience, like its buses, is wearing thin.
So what's driving this latest uproar?
Well, we have a couple of things, I think, Eddie, and of course, they're looking for a better deal, from a financial standpoint. And there's, as most unions now, concerns about contracting out and more part-time workers coming in, and those kinds of cutbacks and what have you. And they've been back and forth negotiating now. I think it's been year or almost a year.
Yeah.
And we still don't have any kind of a settlement. The last I heard, the two sides were not close together. Now, it's not a complete shutdown. The last strike a month ago, it was every 3 days. They do the rush hour service in the morning and then nothing throughout the day. And then you would get rush hour service at dinner time, and then late night service, limited late night service. So you had those spots in between. And if you were relying on the bus, like say you had, I don't know, a dental appointment at 10:30 in the morning, and you had to take the bus. Well, if you weren't on the bus, I think they shut the buses down at 9:45 in the morning. So typically you would have to get up and grab a bus by at least 8:30 to make sure that you got to the end of your ride to get to your dental appointment. And then you're either going to have a walk home or Uber or a taxi or kick around and maybe do a little bit of shopping or poking around until the buses started running again, and the metro as well. So it was just enough to be really, it wasn't a full shutdown, but it was enough to be really annoying and causing a great deal of inconvenience to the public, the people who were paying your wages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now the bus drivers are talking about they could be out on strike, I think, by sometime next month as well.
Yeah, I think the bus drivers gave their union the go-ahead mandate in beginning of this year, January of 2025, to take more aggressive actions on their behalf. So, and I also read, Gary, somewhere that there are 4 different unions right now in negotiation with the STM. So you're looking at the drivers and the subway operators. You're looking at the maintenance people, and right. I'm not exactly sure what the other 2 groups are. So, Gary, I mean, this is the 3rd time in this year, I believe. I think it was like end of May, beginning of June, or something like that. That the maintenance, the maintenance workers were giving the union a mandate for work rule and disruptions. I think, well, we know there was one in late September into yes. early-ish October, and now they're at it again. Where does it end? I mean, with 4 different groups being represented by 4 different unions, this is just an ongoing circle of horror for transportation, public transportation in Montreal. We have the maintenance people that continue to create havoc for us. The drivers, I think it's been pretty tame. I can't remember the last time I remembered that the public transit was out because of striking drivers or metro operators. It's got to be 10 years plus. So something worked there, but obviously the union just got a mandate in January, as I said, to push the issue, and then the other two unions representing employees, I'm not sure if they're mission critical to the operation, but that can also introduce some disruption to public transit. And Gary, public transit is the backbone of getting people from A to B, not just for getting to work and running errands. it's A to B that has a direct impact on the economy. In a lot of cases, if people can't get out and go about and retail and spend money at the retail stores because of the fact public transit is offline or people can't get to work, at some point that starts to directly affect the economical engine of Montreal and the province of Quebec. So I don't know what the answer is, Gary. You know, you can't the governments can't mandate or restrict unions what to do, but this is getting a little preposterous. And you know what? A labor minister coming in and saying, you guys need to fix the problem. Gee, that helps a lot, you know, like what are you going to do to prevent it from happening tomorrow? Yeah, it's just horrible to see. And, you know, and then with the ongoing delays with the light rail system in Montreal, and we're finally getting our northern line, close to 2 years after it was initially promised to be delivered. That doesn't help either. And you know, quite frankly, my being stuck in traffic at 7 o'clock in the morning, trying to go 10 kilometers from here for a hospital appointment, and I couldn't rely on subways at that particular time. It's just ludicrous. It just does not help. And you know what? Unions don't care, and I don't think they're very sympathetic to the general public. And in terms of how much headache they cause us, I don't think they're sympathetic. They like to see the union dues increase because it just fills the coffers of the union. So I don't know, Gary. Four different negotiations going on at the same time. You know what? They might fix this headache now. Next is the drivers, and next who knows what's going to happen next time. So yeah, it's kind of like a work to rule right now with the CSN. They're basically looking at staff refusing to work overtime to repair these buses and subways, and they're talking about slowdowns and stoppages. So you can't even plan around knowing, you know, are the subways going to be working tomorrow? Or are they not going to be working tomorrow? Are they going to give us 24 hours notice or no notice? You know, families with children, you got to plan for this. You know, okay, I can use it at 9:30, but I can't use it at 1 o'clock. So how does that help someone? It's, thanks a lot for the favor and keeping them kind of open, but I don't really think it helps Montrealers one bit.
No, we're the second largest city in the country. And one thing that has been slowly taking place in this city is that more people are slowly making the change from getting into their cars every day and relying on their cars to get from point A to point B. They're pushing more on bicycles, and I see more people on bicycles all the time now. And then you've got your bus service and your metro and the REM, and we're a city that has a number of international events being hosted every week.
Mm-hmm.
And if people can't get around, and I'm sure Uber's doing surge pricing when these guys are out on strike. I know Deborah had a medical appointment way over north during the last round of the maintenance workers pulling, every couple of days. And it was going to cost her $60 one way.
My
for
God.
an Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea what a taxi would cost, but yeah, $60 one way. And they were also asking how many passengers. It's the first time I've been asked that in an Uber app.
Right.
But this is not what we need to help keep people coming back for conventions and conferences and various large meetings to our city. And it's not what the residents need. And somewhere along the way, how has it been allowed to happen that you've got 2 or 3 unions all of a sudden, within what seems like months, weeks, whatever, with contracts coming up for renewal? And why are you, a year later, still trying to negotiate a deal I don't get the mentality that's involved here. Is, you know, you're trying to break the union down, and just at the end of it, they'll take almost anything just to, you know, get back to work on a steady basis. What about the people you're serving? What's getting lost in this whole thing on both sides is the people who actually use the damn service. And both sides have to realize public transit is extremely expensive to run. It's not going to make money. It's going to be a money loser. So you try and work at cutting your losses as much as you can. But you're not going to be able to cut those losses if you keep screwing around with the people who are feeding your revenue stream. Because eventually, we'll all just find some other way to get around.
Yeah.
And we won't, you know, we'll stop using the public transit because it's not dependable.
I don't know if you've seen it, Gary, but in a couple of my morning walkabouts, I've seen signs from the CSN basically saying something to the effect of disruption to better serve you in the future.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I had a marker or a can of spray paint, because I would have let them know what I thought about their message. And what the hell is that in terms of publicity? We're doing this because it's going to improve their service in the future. Give me a break. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, how stupid. You know what? I found it insulting. How stupid do you think I am? Like, I'm really going to back you guys up, right?
Yeah. Well, it boils down to the average person. What can you do for me today? I don't want to hear about the future. What can you do for me today? Is that the Prime Minister calling?
Yes, it is. I wish. Wouldn't that be something, huh?
Yeah. Want to know why we didn't carry his speech?
Oh, yeah. Because
I had the wrong browser, Prime Minister.
He was trying to reach me, that's why.
Yeah. Anyway, I something has to give here, and it has to give pretty quickly, because we're also coming into the Christmas season.
Yes.
You know, and it's going to be a busy time of the year between, again, people getting around to various events and parties and shopping and what have you. Like, and if we're into this kind of foolishness through the Christmas season, it's kind of starting to poke holes in the egg, that golden egg that the goose laid. Mm-hmm. And once you start poking holes through that shell, it starts draining out, and you have nothing left at the end of the day. Yeah, and Christmas is not that far away. Even Costco now has extended its weekend hours by an hour.
Mm-hmm. They've already started.
Yeah. So,
well, you know what? I mean, the employees gave the unions mandate to negotiate on their behalf to get the best they can. But at some point, you get down to compromise. Look, how often do union members, contributors, being the employees, how many work stoppages do you think they can endure before it starts affecting their pocketbooks?
Well, exactly.
Right? I mean, 3 disruptions in a matter of a year. This one's going to be quite extensive. How long do you think that these people can go without work? I mean, they can't survive on manning the picket lines and getting $50 for their troubles. That's not going to cut it. So it's I don't know.
Here's a question.
I just don't see a win-win solution here for anyone. You know.
Here's a question for the union membership to ask. Ask your provincial representatives or your national representatives, when we're out on strike, do you get strike pay too, or do you get paid your regular salary? See what the answer is.
Yeah.
You might be surprised.
Yeah, I would be I wouldn't be surprised. I know exactly what goes on. Steak lunches, a couple of bottles of wine, right?
So, yeah, come on. Like, I hope that somewhere along the way, and maybe it's getting lost because we're in the midst of an election campaign too for municipal elections. I don't know, but you can't take your eye off the ball, even though you're involved in side play. You can't take your eye off the ball, and the ball is your residents who are using your public transit need it. And they don't need any more of this kind of disruption, as they call it. It's more than a disruption. It's a pain in the ass for sure.
Yeah. You know what? Here's a suggestion I'm going to have here for the union leaders and the heads of the STM and the labor minister and the municipal person responsible for public transit in Montreal. You know what? When the Cardinals elect a new pope, they basically put him in a room, they locked him up. We're going to have an STM conclave, and nobody, and I mean nobody, comes out of there until you have a solution, one way or the other, or a compromise, right? And then we all celebrate with a couple of puffs of smoke. Blue for the STM and it's good, white meaning it's not so good. Just do something. This whole thing about, negotiate a couple hours a day and we're going to break until tomorrow, I'm sorry. As a frequent user of public transit, unacceptable. Lock them up in a damn room. You know what? We'll bring you hamburgers and poutine, whatever you want. It's not a problem. We'll pay for your meals and breakfast. Get it done. Do not get out of that room until you have something in place that at least lasts 3 years, 5 years. But get it done.
And that's part of the problem now, Eddie. There's no sense of that urgency and commitment to get a deal done that's good for your membership and good for the owners of the service and good for the actual users of the service. It is, like, okay, well, we'll take a week or 2 weeks to have a look at it. And it might be just a change in one line, but it's going to take them 2 weeks to figure out whether they're happy with it. Come on.
And then you got to get the lawyers to parse through every word to make sure that the wording is legal, and you can avoid lawsuits. And it's like, just get in there, get it done, shake hands, swap spit, do whatever you have to do. Yep. Get it done, because at the end of the line, who's being held hostage, like you said, Gary, is us who pay your damn salaries. All right? You know what? Don't come to me at the end of a strike and say, oh, you know what? Because we were in strike for a month, you're entitled to get $1.13 back. You know what? Take that $1.13, stick it, keep the damn service running. Like, I don't want your $1.13. That's not going to help me, and that's not going to help me accomplish anything, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, enough is enough, my friend. Enough's enough.
All right, we have a couple of comments to catch up on before we wrap it up for tonight. So let's go here. And Deborah says, let's not do away with question period. Let's demand our politicians behave in a more respectful way. The worst is the background noise when someone is trying to speak. We deserve better. We sure do than what you see. Like it's like watching kids in a daycare. And Monel comes in with, but the good news is the REM is going online as of November 17th. Yeah, right. Let's see. Well, they've been running it back and forth, but who knows? We'll probably have a snowstorm on November 17th, and they'll find out that they're delayed again. Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, yes, I did. And I don't take it back. Okay, and that's Night Talk Canada for this week.
From service delays to political fireworks and yet another transit strike in Montreal, one theme stands out. Canadians are running out of patience. We will continue to follow these stories for any important developments. I'm Eddie Tekalik. Good night.
And a little reminder to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow and share us on Facebook, and you can also follow us at Night Talk Canada on X, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, Instagram, and TikTok. And one quick reminder, we need a lot of follows on Facebook right now. And the reason being is we need 100 followers so we can start actually broadcasting the stream from the Night Talk Canada Facebook page, shifted over to where it belongs now on its own page. And for whatever reason, they want 100 followers. So we need a few more. So please, 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 if you're watching on Facebook, hit follow so we can do that. And that means it moves it off our personal pages as well. and gets it where it belongs. So I ask you to do that little favor for us, and we will be very, very grateful for your support. Honest, unfiltered Canadian, the conversation we should be having. Night Talk Canada returns in 7 days. I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.